Mitzrayim. The women, in contrast, are asking for a
portion of the land.
Rashi did not say the daughters of Tzlofchad are asking for a portion of the land. When Rashi says the women are asking, they're saying these women are not a exception to the rule. These women, daughters of Tzlofchad, they are the rule. All the women are connected to the land. And how did Rashi learn that out? The next Rashi that I didn't ask you to speak to see, the first Rashi in chapter 27, we saw that the daughters of Tzlofchad are brought back their lineage to Yosef. And even Mishpachot Menachem ben Yosef are written even after the word, after Menachem is written there. What for us does it mean that Yosef has a connection to the land of Israel? Rashi brings a source, okay? Rashi brings a source. You may have seen it before. Again, the new chapter 27, verse 1. Okay? And Rashi brings the end of the book of Bereshit.
50-25.
The viceroy of Egypt has passed away. His name is? Yosef.
Who's that?
Yosef asked or swore, that's a better word to use, his sons, his family, to take him up to where? To bury him in the land of Israel, not in Marat HaMachpelah, but that's immaterial right now. He does the same thing that his father did. Yaakov Avinu does not want to be buried in, but in the land of Israel. That is the love of Israel. That's the proof that the Torah is understood here from Rashi's point of view. And Rashi brings the term Yosef Chibev from the word chiba, affection and love. Yosef Chibev et haaretz. My dear friends, that's obviously a great source. However, there is another source that the Netziv of Volozhin, okay? The Netziv of Volozhin, as you know, we mentioned him yesterday, we mention him often. He has a commentary, I think, on the Midrash of Sifri. And he brings a different source, and I want to share with you and then go on to the next subject. Do you remember who was put into jail, who became a servant to Mitzrayim, who was sold down to Mitzrayim? And what does he say? He says, as it in the Torah, it's brought in the Bereshit, Ki gunov ganafti me'eretz ha'ivrim. I repeat, Ki gunov. What is geneva? Theft. Ki gunov ganafti me'eretz ha'ivrim. He's a Hebrew boy in a non-Jewish country. And he says literally and openly, I was stolen from the land of the Hebrews. I must share with you right now, famous midrash that our teachers of Rav Tzvi Cook and the students who I learned from would often bring this pasuk, and a famous midrash Rabbi Levi says. And Rabbi Levi in the midrash is making a comparison between Moshe and Yosef. Listen please to the following. Amar Rabbi Levi, Amar lefanav Moshe. Moshe says before God, Ribono shel olam, atzmotav shel Yosef nichnasot la'aretz, va'ani eini yachol likanes la'aretz. Moshe makes a claim. He's litigating in court before God. I don't understand. Yosef merits to have his bones brought and be buried into the Holy Land. But and I myself, I'm not able to have my bones to be buried? Hashem's reply, Amar lo kadosh baruch hu, Mi shehoda be'artzo, nikbar be'artzo. Umi shelo hoda be'artzo, eino nikbar be'artzo. Wow. Whoever admits to his land, I'm adding the word merited, to be buried in his land. Whereas someone that does not admit to his land, he's not buried. Yosef, the Midrash continues, admitted to his land. He said to the Goyim there in Egypt, Gunov ganavti me'eretz ha'ivrim. I was stolen from the land of Hebrews. I belong, that's what he means. I belong elsewhere. I belong to the land of Hebrews. Why is this land called the land of the Hebrews? Is it clear to us? Yeah, well, to you it is, but they're not saying yes. Why is this land called the land of Hebrews? You're on live television. You better give a right answer. What?
Because we will inherit it, or Hashem gave it?
Because it was given to us.
What?
It was given to us by Hashem, by His promise, by blessing.
Why is it called the land of Hebrews? You know,
Am Yisrael speaks Hebrew.
Am Yisrael number one speaks Hebrew. Avraham Avinu is called Avraham
The Ivri.
Ha'ivri, the Hebrew. Two reasons the Midrash gives. Either because his language is Hebrew, or it comes from the other side of the river, not the Mississippi, a different river, the Euphrates. This land is the land of Hebrew. That's how God reveals himself and speaks to his prophets. Yosef admitted, I belong there. What about Moshe? In contrast, let's go back to the well of the water. Remember those bullies? 7 daughters of Yitro are hanging out trying to water the sheep, and comes along Moshe Rabbeinu, Dan Taran. I don't know if he ate spinach before that, that's immaterial, and he erases them away, and the girls come running home. Abba, Abba, Abba! Apparently they spoke with one another. Do you know who saved us? Ish Mitzri Hitzilanu Miyad Haroim. An Egyptian boy, an Egyptian man rescued us from the hands of those shepherds, those bullies. Excuse me? Why do they call him an Ish Mitzri? Let's add what's not written. Probably. How do you do? How do you do? I am Musa. I'm a Mitzri, right? That's what he probably said. He wasn't born in Brooklyn Jewish Hospital. Where was he born? Not in Maimonides Jewish Hospital. He was born in Mitzrayim. I don't understand something. He was really born in Mitzrayim. So how does the Midrash compare and say Moshe does not deserve to be buried here in Israel because he did not admit to his land? One of the great Admorim in Poland, way before the war, I think he died about 200 and a few years ago. It's called the Rabbi from Ostrovca. One of the great Admorim, great Hasidic leaders in Poland. Okay, and Rav Tzhuda Cook would you're playing games with me at this time. Don't get me nervous, please. It's okay. He likes looking at my left side of the face. I know that. In any event, he would say the following. You hear this? I'm talking to you, from Tulane University. Every Jew has to say, I am from Eretz Yisrael. Even those studying in Tulane. Every Jew must say, I belong to Eretz Yisrael. Even though physically and biologically you were not born in Israel. Doesn't make a difference where you are born. I'm from Eretz Yisrael. I'm from Yerushalayim. I'm from Tel Aviv. It's whatever it is. That's how the Rabbi of Strotz explains this Midrash. Otherwise, how do we explain it? Moshe Rabbeinu considered himself like a Mitzri for whatever it's worth. And that's what the girls came running home, the daughters of Yitro. Ish Mitzri hitzilanu miyad haroim. My dear friends, Yosef, therefore, is noted to be a lover of the land of Israel. And therefore, these girls are dated back, their lineage is brought back all the way to, not Yaakov, Yosef. It stops at Yosef. Ben Menachem, Mishpachot Menachem ben Yosef. So that's another source of us understanding. It's all clear to you, is it not, that these girls, their great value, Moshe asked this question yesterday, the Nun Sofit in verse 5, you saw the Nun Sofit, the final Nun. Vayakrev Moshe Mishpatan. Do you all see that right now in verse 5 of the new chapter? At Mishpatan Lifnei Hashem, we said it's called the Nun Rabbati, a very large Nun. It's coming, many commentaries say, to Lahavlit, to, will help me out? Lavlit.
To emphasize.
To emphasize, I was looking for a different word. To emphasize the uniqueness, to make in bold writing, the uniqueness of these daughters of Tzlofchad. Mishpatan, you all know, in your good grammar rules, it's the plural feminine, right? Mishpatan. Hamishpatim shelahen, of them. Okay, really quickly, the reply of Moshe Rabbeinu in prophecy, verses 6 and 7, I'm reading 7 now. Cain, from the word yafeh, not yes. Cain is kenut, it's proper, it's according to. Cain benot tzlofchad dovrot, they're speaking. Naton titein lemachuzat nachala. Naton titein, repetitive or not?
Yes.
Very good. We'll get to an answer to that in a moment. And here we learn the laws of nachala, bequeathing and inheritance, which were not yet taught in the Chumash, and it seems that Moshe perhaps forgot the halacha. However, my dear friends, if you look in Rashi verse 7, Rashi says, after saying the translation of the word Cain, which does not mean yes, Kach ktuva parshazu lefanai b'marom. I don't know if we've met up with this expression until now ever. There's a section of Torah, and it has yet to land down on our planet of Earth to the Jewish people. It's b'marom. It's in the lofty skies, in the lofty heavens. And you know what? Who was able to bring about the arrival of this section? The daughters of Tzlofchad. God, in his unending seeing and viewing of the world, of the Jewish people, sometimes there's a delay and things to happen, and God brings about matters or events to people that they deserve it. The daughters of Tzlofchad are lovers of the land of Israel. In their merit, Hashem is megalgel. He's evolving this event, these laws, in their merit. That's what's stated in another place in the Talmud, quote, I'll say it in Hebrew, Hashem megalgel schut al yedei zakai. English translation. What are you sitting here for? Hashem megalgel schut al yedei zakai. Hashem will evolve matters by people that merit it. Something like that. These daughters merit it. Okay? They're very special. Now, who's the one that asked the doubling of the language? Naton titein lehem. Is it just that the Torah is speaking the language that men speak, where the Talmud does say that, the Rambam brings that? Or is Naton titein coming to tell us something halachically? And indeed, Rashi often not only brings Midrash Agada to teach us lessons, morals, faith, philosophy, he also brings Midrashic Halacha. So please see down below the Rashi here in verse 7, the Dibur Matril, the beginning speech, Naton titein, and Rashi says, what are the first two words? Excellent. Shnei chalakim. Here is a case where Rashi doesn't bother asking the question, but you and I may infer. What is the obvious question? Go for it, Asher. What bothered Rashi?
What are those two portions?
No. The question I'm asking for. Why is the Torah using the word notain twice? Naton titein. I'll raise a matter. Is it just, when David Adler wants to emphasize something, he repeats himself. He repeats a word. I know he's a yekeh, and yekehs don't repeat themselves, but sometimes, people like me don't exactly understand everything. So sometimes he doubles up, he will couple up the word. Is that the way God speaks? The Torah says, Dibrat Torah bilashon bnei Adam. The Torah did speak the language that men can understand. And sometimes there is emphasis.
Teardrop.
What?
Teardrop.
Right, regarding going after judges. What does it say? The exact wording, very good. What? Tzedek, teardrop. There you go. Very good, very nice.
I got it backwards.
It's okay. You're just getting her attention. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, right? Halech acharei beitin, like Rabbi, if somewhere like that, Rashi brings the name of the midrash. Naton titain. The obvious question is, why is the word nitina, which means awarding, giving, from the word matana, doubled up? And Rashi says, shnei chalakim. The virtue of the question of the girls of Tzlofchad, bring down the halachic answer, teaches us, it's a Gemara in Baba Batra, that they're going to be getting several portions. Number one, chelek avihen. Their father, Shayami Yotzei Mitzrayim. Their father who came out of Mitzrayim, he deserves a portion. Who else? V'chelko im echav b'nichsei chefer. Here we're talking about Tzlofchad's brothers. Tzlofchad's father. Tzlofchad, who's his father? Chefer, isn't it? Isn't that what it said? Tzlofchad ben Chefer. So if Tzlofchad is not, so the whatever portion the father is going to be getting from his father, they're going to be getting as well. Rashi, for whatever reason, doesn't bring a third portion, which the Talmud does say. And the Talmud says that Tzlofchad was a Bechor, was a firstborn. And as we know in the book of Devarim, we learned that a Bechor gets Pi Shtayim. He gets double. Okay? If there are two kids to be bequeathing an inheritance still, so the Bechor will get 2/3, and the regular child will get 1/3. Okay? We double up. I don't know why Rashi doesn't bring it, but that's not the point here. Okay, we're going now. If there are no further questions, I'm going now to the next section. Let's all read it. The next section starts with Pasuk what, gentlemen? The next section, Yud Bet. Yud Bet, and it goes only until? No, Yud Daled. It only goes to the end of Yud Daled, maybe 3 psukim. I'm reading it. Follow, please. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Alei el har ha'avarim hazeh, ure'ei et ha'aretz asher natati levnei Yisrael, ve'ra'it ota ve'nesafta lamecha, gam ata, kasher nesaf Aron achicha, kasher meritem pi b'midbartzin b'mrivat ha'ida lakdishenim v'mayim leinehem, heim mei mirivat kadesh midbartzin. I wanted to add one more point. I forgot to, and I wanted to something on a more spiritual, metaphysical level. We just ended a section of the love of the land of Israel, the daughters of Tzlofchad, Yosef, and it's a true fact that there are great women leaders of the Jewish people that have shed and have educated the great love of the land of Israel. And there are those that ask, why Dafka, the women, the ones that are noted to have grasped on, to seize on to the great love of Israel and put into action. And we can see this also in settling the country, Chana Senesh and Golda Meir and a lot of key women that settled the Jezreel Valley that came before the World War II and after, and so on and so forth. What is it where the place where men have failed, women have soared and gone so high? What is the nikuda pnimit, the intrinsic point perhaps, that allows or treasures women to be cleaving onto the land? Okay. Why? Why dafka to the land? So in a very simple way, it's brought in the holy books. The man usually, he's sweating, he's going outside, he's working, he's toiling, he's bringing in the parnasah. And if he's working in agriculture, where as you know, the Jewish people are an agriculturally based nation, he's the one that's plowing and he's sowing the seed in the land. A man has a very deep kesher, a very deep relationship with the land when he sows the land. He gets up 4 a.m. to put on the irrigation system before technology developed. He'd be sweating, taking out thorns and thistles, taking out stones and sowing for, and therefore certainly a very deep connection has been established between the Jewish man and the land of Israel. However, the woman, she's often metaphorized. Is there such a word? Is there such a word, metaphorized? If not, we made it up right now. There are many metaphors in the Tanakh, in Chazal, that a woman is likened to the Adamah, to the land of it. We see that in Isaiah many times. We'll start reading it when we get to the 7 haftarot of Nechama, of consolation. As opposed to the man who is depositing the seed, the woman is like the land, the recipient of the seed. She is likened to the land. Also, in marital relations, it's if the woman is passive. That's one of the answers the Talmud gives in Masechet Megillah regarding how could it be that Esther is as a married woman, is having relations with Achashverosh, a non-Jewish king. How can she still be permitted to her husband when she gets away from this ugly monster called Achashverosh? One of the answers the Gemara gives there, quote, Esther Karka Olam. Esther is likened to the earth. Karka is land. When she had relations with this Achashverosh, she was totally passive, not active whatsoever. Therefore, not invalidating her from her marriage. She has not violated one of the 3 cardinal sins called Gilui Arayot. Okay? So the woman is likened to the land, the recipient, and therefore it's not we should not be too astonished or surprised that the women have a special connection to the land of Israel. Because they themselves are likened to the land. Rav Chanan Porat, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, one of our great Tanakh teachers from the schools of thought of Rav Kook, who passed away several years ago, he wrote that idea. Okay, I apologize for putting that in the middle. We're back into this section. God commands Moshe, number 2, Alei El Har Ha'avarim. Go up to Har Ha'avarim. Tell me the root of this word, Ha'avarim. Aver. Meaning?
It's a bank for
A cross.
You can cross to 2 different sides. Avarim are 2. There's Avar Yardain. Avarim is plural. Some say you can go east-west. Some say north-south. Didn't we read about a command in Chumash Devarim? God tells Moshe what to do at the end of his life? Who remembers the end of Devarim? Har, what's that mountain that he's asked to go up to and die and see? Har who? Har Nevo. Har Nevo. Anyone here living in Ma'ale Adumim? Okay. The national religious neighborhood in Ma'ale Adumim is called is it called Har Nevo? Yeah, something like that. I just forgot. I have several acquaintances there, some alumni there. And it's apparently looking opposite Mount Nevo on the other side of the Jordan River. We don't know exactly where it is. God doesn't want the Jewish people to know where Moshe, in the end, where he was buried. That's Har Nevo. So there it's called Har Nevo. Here it's called Har Havarim. Well, I don't understand what's going on here. What question should we be raising?
Why is it a different name?
Why they're 2 different names? Okay, there are 2 different essences to Mount Nevo. But is this the same command that we read about the end of Dvarim? Yes or no? It seems to be just with different names. Do you think Hashem doubled this commandment up that he should go up to Har Havarim and another time go up to Har Nevo? No, it's only one time. And therefore the question we're asking, what is it doing here? What is this commandment doing here? We don't see Moshe Rabbeinu going up now, nor tomorrow, nor the next day. It happens at the end of Devarim. So, anyone have an answer? Have you seen this before? Huh? Okay. I want to talk. Go ahead.
It's similar to the other commandment that he sort of put off because he knew it would be the end of his life.
So that could be a nice answer. Yisrael says, the commandment is here, although it's not told, achshav, now to do it. Possible answer. Very good. Very good. Any other answer you're thinking of, Amos?
Is it like is the description of what's happening on that mountain more than like giving a name?
We're told here you're going to see the land and you're going to die.
But it's the same place where the Aaron was taken.
Aaron was in a mountain called Hor HaHar.
It's not
and it's in a different place. Yes. Right, so this is called here Har Havarim. That is called there Har Navo. That's what we said. It's the same identical place. So there are those that say, and Rashi raised this question. And Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't want you to misunderstand. Nachon, today you were given the job to bequeath future land of the land of Israel to Tzlofchad's family, to the daughters. Gee, what could Moshe mistakenly think? If I was now given the right to allocate lands of the land of Israel, am I permitted to go in? Perhaps the decree against Moshe Rabbeinu not to enter the land of Israel has been abolished, has been taken back. Maybe God, I don't know, there's a change in plan? No change in plan. You go up the mountain, you're going to die there, Litraut. Yeah. That's apparently how Rashi understood. Rashi knows what's written at the end of the Torah. It's going to be done there. But it's stated here that there be no mistaken understandings. Okay? No mistaken understandings. Tell me, can you please, you're the optometrist, Mr. Colvin. Colvin? I was right, right? How can Moshe Rabbeinu see on Mount Nevo all of the land of Israel? Although it doesn't say here, it says Urei Ta'aretz. He's going to see the land. There, it's depicted at the end of Deuteronomy, Devarim, I think it's there, it says it may see all of the land. Is it really possible to see all of the land? So what does it mean?
Even if you see even a small portion is considered the wall.
Concentrate a little of each land, maybe. That sounds interesting. Or do we say maybe on a metaphysical matter? Moshe Rabbeinu's vision is a metaphysical vision, and he's seeing events that will be happening for the rest of the world until the Mashiach comes, something like that. So he's seeing events. He's seeing the land, not necessarily all of the land physically, but he's seeing what's going to be happening land. Okay, that's, I think, what Rashi says, or the commentaries see there. Okay, we're going on. Gentlemen, the next section, here we're getting a certain exercise to see, Parshiot, smaller sections. This new section begins in Pasuk. Tetvav, that's correct. It's okay, thank you for correcting me, Tetvav. And it goes until, from verse 15 until Kaf Gimel. Everyone read it, and please tell me a title for this section. Please give me a title for this section. Again, we're in Bamidbar chapter Kaf Zayin 27, a new section, verse Tet Zayin 16, to the end of the chapter, to Kaf Gimel.
Moshe asks for a successor.
Oh, the matter of, in Hebrew we call it manigut, leadership. Who will be the new leader? What is this doing here? Yeah, you know that after the fact. Mm-hmm. But the question we'd like to raise is, Aleph, what is it doing here? And B, we've been seeing several examples of the subject called, Toda Rabbi, Smichut Parshiot. The juxtaposition of sections. Thank you. What is it doing here? Is it or not connected to the previous Parshiah? It has to cause us, to stir us to think what's going on. Does the new section open up with Vayidaber Hashem and Moshe Lemor?
No, it's hafuch. Moshe speaks to Hashem.
I caught you, Thomas. Thomas, I purposely raised that question in the air. Yeah, it says Vayidaber Hashem. It doesn't say, it says Vayidaber Moshe El Hashem Lemor. Did we know? No, we don't know. We don't know. We know that Yoshua is the Talmid of Moshe Rabbeinu, but there certainly can be others that are military leaders, strong leaders, public leaders, the greatest of Torah scholars. Maybe. The Talmud says Otniel ben Kenaz was the Gadol Ador in this generation after Moshe Rabbeinu. He becomes a shofet after the generation of Yoshua ben Nun. So, what's going on here? Rashi is such an educator, teaches us so many important values. Let's see that Rashi together, perhaps in Pasuk Tetvav. Again, you notice an example where Rashi uses the word etc. Vaydaber Moshe el Hashem, and he writes Vigomer and etc. That means he's not in particular going to comment on these words, but rather the continuation. Rashi says Lehodia. Well, if Rashi says Lehodia, to inform you, well, there must be a question. We will assume the question in a moment. Lehodia shivchan shel tzadikim. This section is coming to teach us the praise of the righteous. What? Kisheniftarim min ha'olam, when they're about to be passing away, niftar. Ata chayav or ata patur? Chayav, patur. What does chayav mean?
Obligated.
Patur.
No, it's it.
Why? When a Jew is passing away, we use the word in Hebrew, hu niftar. Doesn't literally mean he died. Hu niftar. He is patur. We say he said patur is exempt. You understand? What is he exempt of? That's right. The term that King David uses in Tehillim, lo'eg larash. You've been to a funeral before, haven't you? What do we properly do when we join a funeral?
No, we don't say shalom.
No, the funeral itself.
We put the tzitzit
We put, those that wear their tzitziot outside, we tuck them in. Why?
or don't make the
Lo'eg larash. Quote of 2 words of Tehillim. Not to, the Gemara brings it, not to mock the dead. Why? They can't perform the mitzvot anymore. We can. So, and the Gemara talks about the long clothing that the Amoritic scholars would be wearing, and the tzitzit might be going over the grave or the monument, this or that. So that's the term lo'eg larash. Rash is impoverished. A rash is another word for ani, a poor person. Lo'eg larash is mocking the impoverished. Why are the dead impoverished? Because they can no longer. That's why we use the word, God forbid, someone passes away, hu niftar. He's been freed from the world. He's exempt from the world. He can no longer do mitzvot. That's all derech hagav, by the way. We're going back to this Rashi in verse Tedvav. Please find it and look inside if you can. Lodia shivchan shal tzadikim. It's coming to teach us the great praise of the righteous. That what? Ksheniftarim min ha'olam, menichim tzorchan, v'oskim betzorchei tzibor. Chapter 18, Mesilat Yesharim, when the Ramchal teaches us about a chassid, who is one of the highest levels of serving God. A chassid is not someone who is self-centered, who is thinking just about himself, egoistic. He's always thinking about the klal, the public, the nation, the group, the tzibur, the public. I think this is a classic example. When tzaddikim, he doesn't mention the word chasidim, but that's the language that Chazal used. When tzaddikim are passing away, about to be passing away, they leave their private matters aside and they deal with the public matters. Those are true tzaddikim. They care for the public. We, as new disciples of a brand of Torah that we believe is holistic, that is complete, that hasn't been studied for almost 2,000 years, Torah Eretz Yisrael, a lot of you, a lot of us, are going through this educational process of studying a Torah that's so much related to a klal, a tzibur, a nation, a national entity, a state, military systems, economic systems, and social systems. Okay? Those are tzorchei tzibur. By will or against it, most Israeli boys at the age of 18 leave their private lives and deal with the klal, deal with the tzibur, enlist in the army, and are giving their time, energy, and resources for the public of Israel. That's a very lofty matter. It's a very high matter. Moshe Rabbeinu is told, go up to the mountain. You're not going to be going into the land of Israel. You're going to die after you do this. The next section is God. Vayidaber Moshe. Dibur. Gemara Masechet Kiddushin. Ein dibur el lashon kashot. Dibur is not, this polite Americans, manners. Shalom, how are you, sir? Dibur is tough language. Okay? It's tough language. He's speaking tough now to God. God, you must appoint a leader, a successor instead of me. That has to be done right now. If I'm going to be dying, we must have a successor. And let's just briefly see this topic of leadership. Who is a leader? Number one, in verse Tet Zayin, Yifkod Hashem, may God appoint Elohei Ruchot L'chol Basar. What is Elohei Ruchot L'chol Basar? Someone that has the ability to hear right-wingers and left-wingers and communists and atheists and all these types of people, yet be able to contain all of them. All the different currents and streams of thought, ideologies. Okay? You need someone that his mind will not waver according to the different currents and streams. We have politicians like that, unfortunately, that say Aleph and do better. I never promised to do what I said. I'm sorry. He apologized. Yeah, I know I promised, but I know I promised you, but I never promised to keep my promise. Okay? There are Israeli politicians say that. Okay? That is number one, a great leader of Israel. A man that his mind is strong. He can hear this opinion and that opinion and still formulate. He can still be able to establish policy, a way of thought, a way of action, not at all pertaining to his own personal ideas. That's number one. Number two, in Yud Zayin, Asher Yitzei Lifneihem, V'asher Yavo Lifneihem. Okay, unlike military leaders all over the country, where they stand in the command tower with a pair of tremendous binoculars and they observe the war, Israel, from here, has the highest rate of soldiers, of officers that have fallen in action. There's no other country today in the modern days that has a high rate of high-ranking officers that have fell in wars. Why is that? Because our leaders go up front. They lead the way. See, Dror Weinberg, student of Machon Meir, I was the Machat of Hebron in that terrible terrorist attack in the alleyways of Kiryat Arba, Hebron. He didn't sit back. When he started shooting, he led his soldiers up front and he got killed. It was a tremendous